The Monster's Ring, Chapter 9, The Third Twist of the Ring. Russell stared at the rats. He was tempted to twist the ring, only turning into a monster to deal with a pair of talking rats seemed like overkill. "What's the message?" he asked, his voice almost as squeaky as that of the rats. It was the second rat, the female, who answered. "Mr. Elves said to stop bothering him." "I'm not bothering him," said Russell in astonishment. "I can't even find him." "You think he doesn't know you're looking?" asked the first rat. "It really bugs him when people do that. And trust me, kid, Elives is not a guy you want to bug if you don't have to." "But I need to talk to him. I have to talk to him about this ring." "Did you read the directions carefully?" asked Roxanne. "Yes." "Then you don't need to ask him anything," said Jerome, "as long as you pay close attention to them." "He asked us to remind you of that," interrupted Roxanne. Jerome scowled at her. "As long as you pay close attention to the directions, you've got everything you need to know. If Elives wants to tell you something else, he'll get word to you in another way." The rat started down the side of the garbage can. "Wait," said Russell. How come you can talk?" "It's a long story," said Roxanne, once she had reached the ground. "And we have work to do. The old man keeps us pretty busy, especially at this time of year." She turned and scampered after Jerome. "Wait!" cried Russell again, but it was too late. He watched helplessly as the rats disappeared through a crack in the alley wall. 2 hours later, Russell sat in his room staring at the ring. It scared him. Oh, he loved it. Loved the monstrous carving and the magic that it contained. But he was frightened by what was happening to him. Not to mention the fact that he was now having conversations with rats. He looked at the ring again. So far, it had gotten him into more trouble than he was willing to think about. The thing was, it had been a lot of fun. Should he use it tonight or not? Common sense was saying no. But another side of him, a wilder side, was saying, it's Halloween. What better time to be a monster? He had been looking forward to this night all week. He glanced at the instruction sheet lying on the desk. Twist it once, you're horned and haired. Twist it twice, the fangs are bared. Twist it thrice, no one has dared. He had felt very daring lately. He smiled. One good thing, he didn't have to make up his mind right away. With the ring, he could put on his costume anytime he wanted to. He put the directions in an envelope, going into his dresser. He opened the center drawer, lifting out a stack of underwear, each pair carefully labeled by his mother for the day of the week that he was to wear it. He put the envelope in the bottom of the drawer for safekeeping. He replaced the underwear, then he went downstairs. His mother was in the den reading a cookbook. "I'm going to a bonfire now," he said. "All right, Russell, have a good time." He stared at her in surprise. Her expression was blank, emotionless. He wasn't sure if she was still hurt over what had happened this morning, or if this was a new way of punishing him for that outburst. He sighed, feeling the delight of the moment drained away. Quietly, he left the house. Every year, the town council held a bonfire at the high school to keep kids out of mischief on Halloween. They organized games, served cider and donuts, and gave prizes for the best costumes. It was a good time, and Russell always looked forward to it. This year, Kennetut Falls had a perfect night for the celebration. A wild October wind was blowing through the trees, chasing dead leaves around their trunks. The sky was clear, sprinkled with stars. You could almost smell the magic in the air. Russell nabbed a cup of cider, crammed half a donut in his mouth, and wandered through the happy crowd to see how the bobbing for the apples was going. Suddenly, he spotted Eddie out of the corner of his eye. His enemy was in the grip of a large, mean-looking teenager. From the frightened expression that twisted Eddie's face, Russell could tell that he was feeling the same kind of fear that he, Russell, had so often felt when trapped in Eddie's grasp. Watching the older boy steer Eddie through the crowd, Russell decided to follow. He trailed the two boys around the corner of the school, pressing himself to the building so they wouldn't be seen. Once they were away from the bonfire, the darkness grew more intense. Two other teenagers stepped from the shadows. "You got him?" cried one happily. The other shushed him. Russell edged closer to the four figures, listening intently. Come on, guys," whined Eddie. "I didn't do anything that bad." Russell recognized that nervous edge in Eddie's voice. He had heard it often in his own. "Of course you didn't," sneered one of the boys. "We just want to teach you a lesson now, before you do anything worse." Another reached into Eddie's shirt pocket. "Here's his soap." He was going to soap more windows. "Maybe we should soap him," said the third boy. "How about that, punk? Want to take a bath in the river?" "Yeah, and then you can play find your clothes," said the first with a laugh. Russell began to get edgy. He rubbed his thumb against the ring. Eddie made a break for it. The biggest of the boys grabbed him. "Help!" cried Eddie. "Be quiet, punk!" snapped the boy. He slapped Eddie sharply. That did it. Russell, infuriated by seeing even his enemy getting bullied, began to twist the ring, repeating the chant as he did. Once, twice, and then in the heat of anger, a third time. A small explosion rocked in his head. He knew at once, with a deep conviction, that this change was going to be very different from the ones that he had had come before. So here he's changing. The boys were dragging Eddie off. Russell started to follow, then staggered and fell back into the shadow of the doorway. The change was coming too fast, too strong. He couldn't move. All the familiar things were happening, the horns, the fangs, the hair on the hands and feet. But something else, something strange and new was happening too. He felt as if someone had reached inside him, grabbed his toes, and was trying to turn him inside out. He was hot and cold by alternate flashes. A foul odor was emanating from his skin. Suddenly he was scared to the bottom of his soul. "No one has dared," the instructions had said. Had he gone too far? He became aware of stabbing pains in his back. It increased in intensity until he fell to the ground, writhing in agony. A sudden rush of even more intense pain, sharp and flame-like, a tearing sound, a feeling like he was being ripped apart. And then the impossible happened. Up from his shoulders sprang two huge, bat-like wings. But there was no time to think about that miracle. The heat from his body had become unbearable. Lifting himself to his hands and knees, Russell saw the hair on the backs of his hands begin to smoke. The heat grew more intense. He realized with sudden horror that his clothes were smoking too. Desperate, he tore at them. Too late. They had reached the flashpoint. In one horrible moment, Russell Kraneker was wrapped in flames from head to toe. Dun dun dun.